well, once again, X2thel is bringing you some of the finest in neo-soul and soul artists, and we're here today with Shelly Bhushan. And Shelly has been a featured artist on X2thel previously, and she's going to be one again in the near future. So we're just going to ask her a number of questions and let people get to know a little bit more about who she is. So Shelly, I guess my first question to you is, when did you first realize that you're a singer? When did you first discover your gift?
You know, people ask me this question, and I basically tell them that I've been singing since I could breathe. As far as I've known myself as like me with memories, I've been singing. And it wasn't that I ever thought for myself, oh yes, I'm really good at singing. It was just something that I loved to do. It was something that I passed the time doing. I remember one of my earliest memories was we were in summer camp, day camp at the YMCA, and there was a really resonant bathroom, and I used to sneak away to the bathroom so I could just listen to the echoes of my voice. And it was just something that I loved to do, and I loved singing pop music, but it wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm a singer. I remember singing Tina Turner, Kenny Rogers in the bathroom, random stuff. And I remember in the 5th grade, I ended up joining choir, and it was an after-school program that my dad would pick me up later for. And I remember, you know, starting to learn different parts and actually being really good at it. And actually, the other time that I'm thinking of also is the 2nd grade. They asked me to sing a solo. It was my first time, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I didn't even think that I could do it, but it's always just been part of my life. You know, I don't come from a musical family, so it wasn't like people were encouraging me or discouraging me. It was just who I was, and we played music in the house all the time, but you know, I just ended up turning into this person who was a singer.
Well, it sounds like 2nd grade was maybe the first time that you performed in public, but what was the first time that you performed professionally?
Oh, okay. Well, my first, well, it depends on what you consider professionally, because
first time someone gave you some money.
Oh, I was a singing waitress.
Okay.
And
well, tell us about that.
Well, let's see. In college, there was, or there is actually still, an Italian restaurant chain that had opera singers. And it was a small chain at the time. It's blown up to be really big, and I don't think they have opera singers anymore. But they hired me to be a hostess at first and singer, and I would sing Italian arias. And I, you know, I never, at that point, I had never really indulged me singing pop music except to my friends, and just something that I loved to do. And you know, I'd go around singing art song to different tables, you know, your typical, you know, Verdi or anything. And I remember making, you know, like a $10 tip here or there, and I was in college, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. And I remember I was also very stiff at the time, because I had been singing, you know, in high school, and I'd never really gotten into my body in terms of the way that I would move. I am not a great dancer, by the way, the worst dancer ever. But I remember there was a bachelorette party, and they didn't want to hear art song, and they were like, oh, I want to hear I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor. And I was like, I know how to do that. I've done that in karaoke like 1,000 times. So I remember doing it and belting it, and like people were like throwing plates like for applause, and they like handed me a $100 bill, and I was like, whoa, this is amazing.
And then you find out, yeah, there can be money attached
exactly.
to this.
Exactly. But you know, I mean, it was a great way, it was an interesting way for me to learn how to be a pop singer, because I had been such a, I don't know, a classical singer, a choral singer, and I never really learned how to be one with the pop thing and or the soul thing or any of it. Or I was so used to being so proper about music that I had never really learned how to feel it with my entire body. And that was the first time I was able to experiment because the stakes were low in a way. It was kind of like, well, let me see what happens if I do this for this table. Let me see what happens if I sing it this way. And it taught me how to really let go and become a better performer. So not only did I blossom in my singing, but I blossomed as a performer as a result of that. So it was a pivotal moment in my singing career.
And I think it's important as a performing musician or singer to realize that you are doing this for an audience. Now you can take all the voice lessons in the world, okay, and you're sitting in a little rehearsal room with your coach, okay, but no matter how well you replicate the exercises in that environment, it's going to be a different thing when you are actually there playing in front of people, and you're gauging their response, and you have to tailor what you're doing to, how you're coming across. So it sounds like that experience was helpful there. Well, I'd like to ask you, who were some of your earliest musical influences? I think outside you were talking about, or maybe in here, everybody from Kenny Rogers on to...
Yeah. Well, my influences are vast. I remember the first time I ever heard someone with like some sort of like really resonant, beautiful voice was Karen Carpenter. And
she had a beautiful voice.
She had a beautiful voice, and I remember being really enchanted by her. And so she was the first woman singer that I was like, wow, I love her. And I remember being, very little and trying to replicate her. It's weird to see like a 3-year-old or 4-year-old trying to replicate the sound, but I remember thinking, wow, I want to sound just like her. So she was my first, but then there was also, I grew up in Texas. My next door neighbor, her ex-husband worked for RCA, and so he'd bring over records from Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, Charlie Pride,
Porter Wagner,
all sorts of stuff. And then, of course, Michael Jackson was huge. Like, I remember getting the Thriller album and just like opening up the album and staring at him with the little white tiger, and just listening to it over and over again. Hall & Oates, huge. I remember having dance parties, even with my bad dancing skills. And then, of course, anything on pop radio. I listened to Top 40 radio. I mean, I cut my teeth on radio, and then Whitney, of course. And then, as I grew more, I remember when I was living in Austin, there was this great soul station. It was like 60s soul station. It was my first time really, really listening to a lot of deeper cuts. And I was like, I love this. So I spent a lot of time listening to that, and then later in life got introduced to Donny Hathaway, who I like. Whenever I hear him, I am like, I can't even believe what an incredible voice this man had. It's like, I can't even speak about it because it's amazing. Of course, Aretha Franklin, I could listen to her forever, and Etta James. And then there's all these other people who had songs here and there that you're just like, wow. Like today I was listening to Misty Blue, and I was like, God, I love this song. So just anything and everything.
Was it Dorothy Moore?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, who do you listen to these days? What artists are performing that influence you now?
Well, it's weird because I go through different cycles of listening to different artists, and this morning I was listening to some older Radiohead, and then of course I was listening to Dorothy Moore, and I just downloaded a David Byrne album, and David Byrne and St. Vincent. So I'm always trying to...
How is that?
It's good. I haven't listened to the whole thing yet, but I listened to about like four of the songs, and it's really cool.
Yeah, because I couldn't really imagine them together, but I'm a Talking Heads fan.
Oh. Then you're going to dig this.
All right.
I think you should download it. It's cool.
Well, on your recommendation, I'm going to do that. Now, I know that you have a working band.
I do.
Okay. And as a matter of fact, we have to give props to your bass player, Harry Cordu.
Harry.
Because if it were not for him, this might not be happening.
It's true.
I'd like to ask you about your creative process. Because you're a songwriter. Yes. Right? Mm-hmm. When you write, do you write by yourself, or do you get the people in your band together, or what's your process?
I write in a lot of different ways, and for example, the album that I'm working on right now,
which we definitely want to talk to you about.
Yeah, 3/4 of it I wrote on my own, and then the other fourth I wrote with my bandmates, Harry, John Celentano, who's my husband, Ben Hofstein. We wrote that together, and then some of our previous albums we've written together as well. They start off as improvs, and sometimes I'll come in with lyrics, and sometimes I won't. And you know, it just kind of happens. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it fails miserably. But I mean, it's been an amazing experience to work with these guys in particular, and I've worked with them for a long time, so we have a pretty good chemistry, and we know how the other one works, so we can kind of feel it out. But I've also worked with other people. I don't have a specific method in terms of, you know, what I think works best. The only thing that's important to me specifically when lyric writing, because I tend to think that that's more difficult than the melody for me in particular, is that I need to make sure that I have a very clear point of view in terms of what I want to talk about, because if you don't know what you want to talk about, then it just kind of crumbles. And
or you end up telling 2 or 3 different stories at the same time.
Exactly. But I mean, working with John, Harry, and Ben has been really great. I mean, they've taught me so much about music. They're probably the biggest musical influences I've ever had, you know? And they're also different in terms of their influences that, you know, for example, John grew up listening to a lot of rock and Led Zeppelin and The Who, Talking Heads. Ben is a big old school Genesis fan. And of course there's Harry, who's got like all this crazy soul experience, funk experience. So it just kind of culminates into something really interesting, and they've really helped define my sound, our sound, the sound that we've been creating over the years. And you know, and even when I bring in a song that, let's say, I wrote by myself, they write their own parts, you know, they feel it out, they know what we're going for, and you know, it's been a really great partnership. So
well, not every singer is fortunate enough to have actual musicians at their disposal, and for budgetary reasons as well as other reasons, I guess.
Yeah.
A lot of singers end up working with a producer who just brings them a track, or you know, a number of different producers. Do you see yourself doing that, or is it your present intention to continue to grow with the musicians you work with?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned right now, I'm very happy with the way that things work. I do love the energy of creating things in a live environment. There's something really amazing about being able to play an instrument on your own or sing on your own, but it's even more amazing to be with other people. I mean, that's really what music's all about, is to feel how you weave within each other. And you know, I love the live process of writing or arranging with people. I mean, I don't think I could ever just do a song with a producer, although I wouldn't say no if it was something cool that I liked. But right now my intention is to continue to do it this way. I like it this way. And they seem to be okay with it too.
So now you're working on, this is going to be your 3rd album?
4th.
Your 4th. Oh,
yeah.
Well, somehow I missed one, so we have to talk about that later on. So tell us what's going on with it. Where do you stand with it, production-wise?
Well,
when do you think it's going to be released?
Well, I've been, lying to myself, like, it's going to be done, like, now. And, making an album takes a lot longer than you ever think that it's going to.
Unless you don't really care about how it sounds, okay? Because some people just put out...
Well, that's really true. And we definitely went about it in a different way. I mean, one of the big things was that I wrote a lot of the material on my own, so the band wasn't able to hear a lot of that stuff. It was kind of like I wrote it in a vacuum, and I wrote it very quickly. And so... it's kind of like, okay, so we didn't have that sort of arrangement process that we normally have, but at the same time, one of the things that we were able to do is course correct some of the things that, when you get used to playing something a certain way, it's like, people say that everybody ties their shoe incorrectly, except for a small percentage of people, and then once they learn to tie it the right way, they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So in a way, this is kind of what we're doing, is course correcting and tying the shoe properly. So spending more time on arrangements and really making sure that everything is sounding beautifully. I would say 3 3/4 there, almost there. We started doing vocals this week, which has been good. And usually when you start doing vocals, you know that you're getting really close.
Coming close to the end.
I know, I'm like, yes.
So do you anticipate releasing it in 2013?
I think so.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I'm like, I wanted to do it in 2012, but I think, especially when you spend so much time doing something, you know, you want to make sure that you do it right. And I don't fall into that category of person who will continue to revise and revise and revise and revise.
Doesn't
definitely.
it make you crazy? Okay.
It does.
Sometimes it's like, well, the song is, that's it, it's done.
Exactly.
And if you have new ideas, let's put those in the next song.
Well, yeah, you know, and there even little arrangement ideas. It's like I walked into doing the vocals, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe you should do a backing vocal track on here, and you're like, oh, but I wasn't planning on doing it. But you're right.
You do your own background vocals, though, right?
I do, but sometimes I will have somebody else come in. I'm not sure exactly what I want
Just to
do.
get a different texture.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I do think that it's nice to have other voices in there. I think, you know, I might consider doing that. I worked with a bunch of vocalists this year, and it was the first time I had done that. So it was really great to hear other people singing behind my songs, and I did the same for theirs. There are other singer-songwriters. It was really cool. I was like, wow, I feel like I'm in choir again. But it is nice to have other people in your song vocally, and Harry does some backing vocal parts too, and he's a great singer, so it's good.
So can we expect not only to have a new release coming from you for 2013, but also, I guess, some promotional appearances? Those in the works?
I mean, I'm definitely going to plan a tour, you know, and also stop by here again and chat with you guys if you want me to.
Oh, absolutely.
And, you know, really just try and push the record. Also trying to do more video content and get out there. You know, you got to. But yeah, I mean, I really believe in this record. It's in my opinion, and you know, every artist will say this, it's the best one yet, you know, and I believe it is. You know, I feel very happy about the direction that it's moving in, and I hope people like it too.
Well, I like the last, I mean, the ones that I've heard, I've loved. So, you know,
Thank you.
I expect to love this one as well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing some time with us. Okay, we really appreciate it. And once
Thank
again,
you.
for the people that are watching, Shelly Bhushan.
Thanks so much.
Give me something I can feel. I'm never satisfied and I need something real. I don't like what I got. I'm never satisfied and nothing hits my spot.